Packaging. It's one of the most important considerations when marketing a food and beverage product. So much so that we wanted to do a deeper dive on the subject to fully round out our food and beverage product marketing series. In this episode, we're doing nothing but case studies, 3 to be exact, as career food and beverage marketer, graphic designer, brand strategist, and all-around packaging guru, Jenn David Connolly walks us through her methodology. 2 of the case studies focus on the delicate task of evolving a brand with an established base. In the other, Jenn walks us through the process of building a brand out from scratch. We touch on naming, color theory, mood boards, iconography, and a number of other variables Jenn considers when using a design thinking approach to getting into the heads of prospective customers. If you're a food and beverage brand or the maker of any consumer product good, you're gonna love it. Just like you're gonna love all the episodes in our 10-episode series on food and beverage product marketing. Link above. If I'm right, please hit the like button, maybe subscribe, and in a perfect world, give us a shout out or a share on social. We'd really appreciate it. But now, Jenn David Connolly. And we're back with another episode of the Niche Marketing Podcast. This time we're virtual. I don't usually do virtual, but I had to in order to get my next guest, Miss Jenn David Connolly, onto the show. Jenn, welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you, John. I'm happy to be here.
I'm a little slow with the sound effects, but we got them in there eventually. Jenn, we're super excited to have you because you have a really deep background in all things packaging, CPG packaging, particularly in the food and beverage space. We're, of course, going very deep right now in food and beverage, and we're excited to have some of your insights. Today, we're going to do something a little bit unique and have you walk through some case studies of your work, helping the audience understand your process as a packaging design expert, and frankly, what goes into making amazing packaging designs for food and beverage products. But before we get into that, I was hoping you could share a little bit of information about yourself, personally, professionally, help the listeners understand who you are, what you do, and how you ultimately launched. You operate under essentially your name, Jenn David Connolly, right?
Well, Jenn David Design is the business name officially.
Jenn David Design. So if you could share a little bit about yourself, Jenn.
Yeah, so I'll start at the beginning. I grew up in Boston area, and I had always been interested in art. So when I went to college at Connecticut College, I majored in studio art, and within that, you pick a concentration. So my concentration was graphic design. And that's how I got into that. I did they had a really cool program there where you intern in New York City. So you live in New York City for a semester, and you're just basically interning full time for a the creative industry of your choice, basically. So obviously mine is graphic design. I ended up with an advertising agency, the in-house advertising department at Bergdorf Goodman, which is the big Fifth Avenue retailer. So that was a really, really cool experience for me to just live in New York City as a college student and just work full time and just immerse myself in, everything, kind of how an agency works and what they do, and just to kind of get coached and trained by the people who work there. So that was a really amazing opportunity, and it was for college credit. So
awesome.
It was great. Yeah. So that was really great. That was probably the highlight of my college experience. And then when I graduated, I worked in the Boston area for a couple design agencies. Actually, the first one was an advertising agency. And it was not that glamorous, but it was a great first job. We designed primarily help wanted newspaper ads. Which sounds so cool. I'm dating myself. But there was so much to learn within that. So not a very exciting job, but it was a really cool place to work. They were super busy. They had a ton of work, and I learned a lot. I worked under a wonderful creative director who was essentially, I called her my mentor. And I just learned so much there. So my second job after that was working on a little design studio. They primarily were designing things like direct mail. Again, just this stuff sounds so old because people don't do this anymore. But
it illustrates your pedigree and how you've been involved in all aspects of design, marketing design, things like that. So I think it's very prudent.
I was just, eager to soak up whatever experience I could get at the time. And even though, like I said, even though it wasn't maybe the most exciting job or exciting work, it was great people, great place, and just the work that I did. And I think feel like everybody who worked there as well, just upheld that to a high standard, right? So even though it might not be the most interesting thing that we're designing, like we did a lot of real estate direct mail too. You just bring your best to it and you learn from it, and you're helping these clients. And so that was, it was good starting experience. After that, so I was a couple of years out of college at that point. My husband and I decided to uproot and move to San Francisco. Just personally, we were kind of tired of cold winters and humid summers, and I landed in San Francisco. It was 2002. The dot-com bubble had just burst, so nobody was hiring. It was great timing.
Yeah,
but I found that there was just a ton of freelance work because people weren't hiring employees, but they still needed work done. So I was just taking whatever I could get. I designed like album covers for CDs. I'm trying to think of some of the other stuff I did. Just a lot of random stuff. And then I ended up working with Williams-Sonoma, and that's really where I got into food design, food packaging design. Nice. So worked with them for, I think it was maybe 2 or 3 years, and just got a ton of experience from that as well. So, designed everything from food to kitchenware, with the packaging.
Yeah.
So that was, again, just really, really cool experience.
And you've been out on your own, operating under your own company ever since?
Ever since, yeah. And
well done, Jenn. Never look back.
It was something that I never planned to do. When I was in college, I thought for sure I want to go back to New York City. I want to be creative director at a big ad agency. And life didn't take me that way. And it was great. I was totally fine with that. You think you want something, and then kind of you live your life, and then you figure out, you want something else.
Funny.
But, then people would see my portfolio and they'd see all the food work that I did, and they'd want more of that. They want me to do that for them. So that's really how I got into food packaging design and food branding design. It just kind of happened that way. It's not anything I planned on, but that's what happened. And it just took off from there.
That's fantastic. And you're in San Diego these days, correct?
I'm in San Diego. Yeah. I've been kind of all up and down California and landed in San Diego. It's where I like it the best.
Yeah. So before we get into the content, as a Bostonian originally, is that correct?
That's right.
Do you have any favorite food or restaurant shout outs for people that are visiting Boston? Any recommendations in the Boston area?
You're putting me on the spot here. What's the one in Harvard Square? Oh my gosh, this pizza place in Harvard Square. Why is it not coming to me? Pinocchio's. They make, what is it? Sicilian style pizza. And it's just the most amazing crust. It's the most amazing pizza. It's just this little hole in the wall place, but I think it's pretty well known for the area.
Nice. That's a good one.
Always been my favorite. I think they're still around. Haven't been there in a while, but hands down my favorite.
That's terrific. I'm Sicilian, so you certainly piqued my interest with that one.
Sweet.
All right, awesome. Thanks for that, Jenn. So moving into the objective for today, to review some case studies of your work and again, help our listeners understand the process you go through. One thing that we didn't really get into is your agency, essentially. Could you tell us a little bit more about the agency itself?
Yeah. So at this point, for a long time now, we've specialized only in working with food brands. So in the beginning, like I said, I kind of just took, anything I could for experience. But as I did more and more in the food industry, I realized this is something I really love, always loved food, and really love helping food brands. And I just think that designing food packaging and food brands is it's just the coolest thing to me. It's so fun. It's, who doesn't love food, right? And, you want to get this person to pick it off the shelf and buy it. So how do you do that, right? There's so many other things to choose from, competitors. So I love that challenge of that. And even online, right? It's the same thing as in the store pretty much, is how do you get them to click on that and choose that, when they're searching online for other stuff. So we work with any type of food brand pretty much, from startups to large corporations to everywhere in between. Work on all types of food, frozen, shelf stable, refrigerated, you name it, and all types of food packaging as well. I really just love being in this specialty industry.
The more content I do with marketers in the space and some brands in the space as well, I'm starting to fall in love with it. It's such a cool, fun, just exciting. I mean, like you said, who doesn't love food? And it's also, it's really competitive, right? And so there's a certain charm to that. Easy for me to say as the new guy, right? But there is a certain charm to kind of like up leveling your game to be able to hang with, some of the best marketers arguably in the world and see if you can do what needs to be done to separate you and your clients from the pack. So there's something I kind of like about the big league nature of it all. So that's great. Thanks for sharing that about the agency, Jenn. And so now let's get into some of the content. You have some case studies you're going to share with us. We're super excited to see those. So you mind sharing your screen and we'll get into it.
Well, let me get to it. Yeah.
Oh, you took too long.
There we go. All right. So here we go. This is an assortment of our work here.
Now, I'm going to interject right off the bat. So before you get into it, for this one and each one we get to, could you start by telling us the challenge that the brand was facing originally and ultimately, of course, the steps you took to solve those challenges?
Yeah, for sure. So that'll come through in the tagging that I do.
Awesome.
Okay, so let me get to the first one. So the first one is called Cooper Street Cookies. They had been around for a long time. I'm not sure exactly at the time we started working with them how long, but they'd been around. They were a seasoned brand. They were, I think they were regional, like a really widely, regional. I want to say they covered like half the country. And they were, it's still family owned and run, as far as I know. And it's named Cooper Street Cookies because the mom was baking cookies. They lived on Cooper Street. They grew up on Cooper Street. Mom would bake cookies. Kids would come over after school. They loved it. So eventually turned into a business. And the sons eventually got into it as well. So it really cool. They were at a really great point, but so this is where they started at when we started working with them. You could see it's, kind of all looks the same. They've got two product lines here. One's like kind of like a biscotti on the bottom in the pouch. So it's kind of like a granola bar, but it's soft. It's almost like a cookie. So they call it granola cookie bakes. And, a lot of information all over the place, not particularly stand out when you see it on the shelf. So they knew it was time. They wanted to keep doing lots of growth going forward in their business. And they knew it was the right time to kind of reassess the brand, make some improvements and set that stage for going forward. So here's our starting point. And then here's where, this is starting in with the design concept. So whenever we start working with a brand, we go through a lengthy strategy process and really just gather all the information that there is to gather at the start. Everything from, brand history, product, competitor set, retail audience, all this kind of stuff. And then the objective is, obviously in this one, it's, hey, we need to refresh the brand. It's kind of not working for us anymore. Like it got us this far, but it's not really working for us. So this is an evolution here. We're not, because you don't want to alienate your audience in terms of, oh, it's a totally brand new look. I don't even recognize this brand. So we do varying levels of that, right? So here we're just looking at the twice baked cookies, the biscotti type cookie. But you can, if you look at
Biscotti, Jenn, biscotti.
Biscotti. Biscotti. Thank you, John. So if you look at it from here to here, there's a jump. So this one's a bit of a more of a departure evolution. But basically we are cleaning up the information, right? There was information all over the place. The eye didn't really know where to go. Um, and just making it more impactful on the shelf. So one of the objectives was to bring more color to it for sure.
Mm,
So this is I'm going to kind of walk you through a series of concepts here, where this is just
great.
like we're exploring different avenues here, right? The difference here is, what about the logo color? They had this kind of light blue color, which I didn't feel was serving them very well. It's not
Huh?
appetizing. It's not that bold. It's kind of washed out. It seemed kind of arbitrary.
Mhm.
So do we keep that? Do we lose it? Here's kind of what we're exploring within these. So just, what does it look like with yellow? So those are all one concept for
Yeah, I
them.
see you alternated between like the headline or the subheadline, which should be bigger,
Mhm. Is
the yeah, cursive-ish font in between there, and
Yeah.
ultimately the next slide you have the yellow now
Yep.
incorporated. Hmm.
Yeah, so we play around with these, minor variations, and I'll usually show them to the client, whatever's viable, right? That comes up in the process. So we can just consider kind of, maybe they like this design, but they like the more, this second line bigger than the first line. Kind of, these are things we talked about as what makes more sense to do, right? So, and we don't know until we try. So we explore all these things in the process. So some other concepts here, again, just a
Mm.
little approach. Um,
And this is the same product, right?
Same product, yeah. So we're just
Revolution.
sort of in one of this is the more prominent product line of there too. So this is what we focus on first. And this one, it's got the cookies bigger, bleeding off the edge. What does that look like? We're often working with just kind of stock images. You'll see little watermarks in here because this is just concept work, not final. So we'll just kind of throw in some stock images, see what that looks like. In the end, maybe they shoot custom, maybe we go with stock. These are things we decide along the way, but just kind of between the two concepts here, it's like you can there's a lot of different things, right? This one highlights more of the cookie, this one highlights more of the name with the cookie as
Mhm.
well. You know what I mean? So just kind of exploring these different nuances, right? So then this one is more of a departure. So
Mm.
we talked about this being an evolution, but one of the things we wanted to explore is, hey, what if it's not really an evolution? What does that look like? Just to make sure we got all our bases covered. So this one is more of a departure. We got full color in there,
Mhm.
and there's not a whole lot that's an evolution really, other than the logo, and the images are the same. So different. If I recall correctly, everyone liked this, but ultimately we came back to the evolution, just for that reason, because it already had such a wide audience and area coverage. It had a lot of brand equity, and we wanted to maintain that.
Okay. Was there
Um,
anything, any specific, I don't know, psychological reason for doing the full color, or just, hey, let's try full color and see what it looks like?
A lot of times when I'm designing in my process, and I don't recall if this was the client and our team together said, hey, let's explore something that's totally different. It just came up in the process. So a lot of times when I'm in the design process, I don't know what it looks like until I try it, right? So I have the idea of just, hey, what if we just throw in a full color background in there? What does that look like? It's and even sometimes it's like, hey, what if we go too far in the other extreme, right? And then we know kind of where the limit is, right? So on a smaller level, with, for example, the cookies, I think it's on one of the concepts. Let me see if I go. So if on a smaller level, even for example on this concept, we took the cookies, right? And what does it look like if we just make them really big and bleed it up the page? You don't know until you try these things. So it's kind of about finding that the boundaries of where we work within, if that
Okay.
makes sense.
And I think a lot, in a lot of ways, it's just like, hey, let's explore all options
Mhm.
before we get married to any one specific approach.
Exactly. And that's one thing I love about the creative process is there's nothing that's not reasonable to try, in my opinion. If I have the thought to do something, I'll just try it and see what it looks like. So even in what I'm showing you, there was probably, I want to say, at least another 20 iterations within each concept where I'm just
Hmm.
kind of going step by step and like, okay, change this. What about this? What about this? And I just keep creating new iterations until there's one that really just hits it, hits the mark on every level. And that's what ends up making it into the concept presentation.
Okay.
So this was another design concept. Ultimately, this is one that the one that we went with. Actually, this one, this not this exact one, but this was the concept that got chosen to fine tune. Everybody just loved the way the logo was kind of highlighted in this big box, so it really highlighted the brand. The white background, even though it's got a lot more color, was that evolution we were looking for. And the information, we fine-tuned it from here, but it was getting on the right track of the call outs and information, kind of this is working, So
In looking at this, there's probably some elements of what you did here that to you are like obvious best practices. But maybe
Mhm.
let's just take your bootstrap startup that might want to give a run at trying to do this themselves, or just is trying to understand like how you ended up with the elements sized and proportions and structured the way you did. So like are there any just kind of almost 101 best practices to someone like you that might not be obvious to an outsider on why you enhanced things where how you did, or why you highlighted certain elements when and where you did?
Yeah, great question, John. I'm actually going to move to the next slide because I think this is the before and after. So this one on the top here is the final design, and we can kind of compare it to where we started
Perfect.
before.
Perfect. I teed you up. You see how I did that? I knew what was coming.
Thank you. And it's a great question. A lot of times this stuff just, I've been doing this so long, it
Right.
just kind of comes intuitively, and it just, it's in the background of the decisions I make when I'm
Exactly.
designing. But I'm not always, I take for granted that not
Sure.
everybody understands this stuff. So first and foremost, it's got to pop off the shelf. So if
Mm.
you look the before and the after, the cookie images are the same. The cookies were great. Nothing about the product changed. We're only changing the packaging. The photography worked, and in part of keeping that, that's also an evolution, right? So that's the consistency that we keep. The logo is the same font. It's just changed color, and now it's in a box. It's in a different location. Um, if you looked at it before, the first thing you see is Cooper Street. What does that mean to you if you don't know the brand?
Yeah.
Pretty much nothing, right? You can see cookies, but what is it? Is it a mix? Is it actual cookies ready to eat? Is it something flavored like a cookie? You just don't know. So, first and foremost, when somebody sees this, they've got to understand instantly what it is, right? So, the large title, if that's what you see first, maybe you see the cookies first. It's debatable as to where the eye really goes first, but I would say the cookie image captures your attention. It's bigger, it's prominent,
Mm.
it's front and foremost. And then you see the big text. Oh, okay. This is the flavor. This is what it is. It's a twice big cookie. And then moving beyond that, so the brand, you see the brand, but it's there, but it's not really distracting from anything else. So then you kind of move on if you're interested, right? If this is resonating with you as a consumer, then you see the call outs, right? So nut free, dairy free. That's pretty uncommon for biscotti. Did I say it right,
There you
John?
go. You're getting better.
Big type product. It's pretty rare that it's going to be nut free and dairy free. They were really proud of their calorie count per cookie because it's as we're calling out up top, deliciously crisp and guilt free. So these are the big selling points, right? So those are highlighted. It's big, but it's not distracting from anything else on the front. And then moving even beyond that, okay, now sell me a little bit more, right? So with real Michigan cherries and indulgent white chunks, I'm going to try and zoom in here, with decadent semi-sweet chocolate and a twist of cinnamon, with real Maine blueberries and a fresh burst of lemon. So
Yeah, that's
you've
great
got
to see that.
Um, there's a little lag on on the screen share. So that it's you see it, captures their attention, informs as to what it is, sells them with the selling points, and it entices them further with a little bit of description, right? So if the process is going according to plan, at this point you would have picked it up and maybe you flipped it over and you're reading the back of the package. So these are all the things that go into the design thinking and the strategic thinking behind the reason we do what we do.
Love it.
So if I move on, so speaking of the back, so before, and this is just a screenshot of the flat. It's the best I had to work with for showing the before of the back. Again, information everywhere. Just kind of feels like it's a spattering of information all over the page. Doesn't really feel that cohesive. I don't really know where to look first.
Yeah, that blue's not very legible either.
Right, right. And so the after, it's just better organized. We bring the style from the design concept to the back as well. I think every part of the package is just as important. And one of the things that I really love is the back isn't just, oh, it's okay, we got the front. The back is kind of whatever. We got to put the technical stuff there, the required information. It sells just as much as the front. So if you're the consumer in the store, you picked it up, you're looking it over, you flip it over, and then, okay, sell me more. What should I put this? Am I going to buy this? Like, you need to sell me more of this.
This strikes me as clearly the potential prospect is further down the funnel, so to speak. They're further in their buyer's journey. And, the textbook, way to approach that is you're going to lead a little bit more heavy with emotional appeal higher in the funnel.
Mm-hmm.
And as they get further down the journey, you're going to start to bring more practicality to helping them make the decisions. And that's why I think that you're, clearly why you're highlighting some more of the calorie benefit,
Mm-hmm.
the low salt, and then at the same time, looks like leaning more into the story. So go ahead and take it from there.
Exactly. And that's a great point about it being similar to a marketing funnel.
Right.
There's probably just one difference though, is that there is still the emotional connection, right? As you go down. So if you've gotten this far, you want to know, why are they doing this? How is it different from other cookies out there? So giving that context and explaining, I don't think the back of the previous package explained what Cooper Street was.
Mm-hmm.
I really want to know, right? I really want to know what Cooper Street is if I'm looking at this package. So we explained that. We explained the it was her family's 100-year-old cookie recipe. I forgot
cool.
about that. So and just kind of, so it gives more context to the brand, who they are, and why they're doing what they do, why they're making this. And then it kind of just goes on with the description of selling it in a really enticing way.
Awesome.
And then there's so many great things to call out about this product. So it was the challenge of, how do we keep all these great call outs without it being busy? So we came up with this banner to kind of tie everything, all those call outs on the back together, and cross sell to the other flavors down here. Got the website nice and large, got more cookies on the back, and then your required stuff just goes over here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's in a nutshell, that's that one.
Well, it looks fantastic, Jen. Really nice job on that.
But wait, there's more, John. To kind of show you. So from there, we roll out, all across the brand, right? So we came up with smaller size pouches for a couple of the flavors, and then remember they had that second product line, so we wanted it to look not identical like it was before to the other product line, but this is its own distinct line within the family. So it feels like the family, but it feels like its own line. So in this one, there was more room for change on this one, a departure on this one, because it wasn't as widely distributed as the other product. So we went full color on this. And again, same approach applies. This big, enticing product, granola cookie bakes. People aren't really going to know what that is, right? Because it's a cookie and it's a granola bar. What is it? But you can clearly see, and it tells you what it's made with. It's got the call outs on the side panel here. We did this cute little, what it's made of. And
nice. Highly visual too, I see.
Yeah.
Can you zoom in on that a little bit for us, Jen?
Yeah. And it's just fun, right? Sorry, it's a little too big.
It's great.
Let me see.
That looked great.
How's that? There we go.
Nice.
So the site, it's just a fun way of displaying the information. So if it's when I'm designing, if it's fun and interesting to me, then it's going to be fun and interesting, I think, for everybody. So that's kind of what I keep in mind is we're not just presenting information, but we want to make it fun. We want to make it interesting. We want to get people excited about this product, and just when they see it, to just think, oh, this is different. This is interesting, even if they're not consciously thinking those things. I think a lot of what happens in the food purchasing process, so CPG food, is subconscious, and it happens so quickly. Often, if you think about somebody, so I'm going to use the traditional retail store example. If someone's walking down the aisle, they're busy, they're distracted, they're just kind of looking for stuff, and oh, this grabs my eye. Okay, what is it? Okay, read, toss it in the cart. Or if it doesn't connect with them, put it back on the shelf. But that happens so quickly. I think a big misconception is that you design in a vacuum, right? You think that people are going to, spend lots of time looking at your package and really read everything that's there because you put it on there. That's definitely not the case. And I think if we think about how we food shop, I mean, a lot of people are buying groceries online now, but very similar things apply. Is you see all these things. How do you pick it out? What is it? Click on it, add to cart. You still want to get them through those steps. So, yeah.
Well, it looks awesome. And I want to double back on something you just quickly mentioned. Tell me if I heard you correctly. You said that because this line wasn't nearly as widely distributed as the initial biscotti product that we looked at, you took more artistic liberties in being a little bit more adventurous and coloring outside the original line, so to speak. Is that what I heard? Today's episode is brought to you by The Agency Guide. Are you frustrated with an underperforming marketing agency? Who isn't? Are you unsure about what marketing channels to invest in and who to invest with? Maybe you're just fed up with the overpromising and under-delivering of marketing agencies. Fear not. You need to contact The Agency Guide. The Agency Guide, or TAG, represents a vetted pool of 200 plus vetted marketing agencies and consultants, and they will matchmake your brand's specific needs with these trusted marketing professionals for free. That's right, for free. You don't need an expensive agency search firm. You need The Agency Guide. For over 10 years, TAG's experienced marketing consultants have been providing pro bono consulting and matching brands with vetted agencies based on needs, budget, timeline, location, even your personality. They're marketing professionals. They're agency matchmakers. They're The Agency Guide. To learn more, visit www.theagencyguide.com today.
Yes, and that was a decision that we made together with the client, if I recall correctly. So they were already on board with that, and they were ready for a greater change on this one.
Okay, yeah, and just to confirm what I'm interpreting between the lines there, and so it's on that first product. You maybe want to walk a delicate balance of, if they have a lot of existing customers, making sure that they don't feel like it's a totally new product or something different, or that they don't even recognize it on the shelf. You still want them to recognize it for what it is, but at the same time, give it a completely refreshed look. Is that about right?
Exactly. Yes. And I would say not to the point where you don't want to keep anything that's not working. So for example, that light blue brand color, which you see here, which was very prominent throughout all their branding previously, was certainly something that tied the brand together as a baseline. But it just wasn't working. It's cool. I'm cool in terms of like cold. It's not warm. It's not welcoming. It wasn't there for any particular reason. And so that's something that we just felt was appropriate to drop.
Awesome. So what's next?
So just continuing on, just to kind of show you that once we've got these designs, then we apply it to all the other packaging. So they've got display cartons here, and these I'm going to kind of roll through quickly because it's really just an example of how the brand build out takes place, where it's different package, same product. So of course you want these to be very similar, right, to the packaging we just looked at. So very similar to this. So these are the displays. I love these clamshells. These are my favorite clamshells I've ever designed because clamshell packaging, and I don't do a lot of it, but it's not particularly glamorous, right? And then the labels that are on it are usually pretty rudimentary, pretty basic. So these, I mean, I just think are beautiful. I'm a little biased, but I just think
Yeah, they
it's a
really
really,
pop.
yeah. Yeah, and these would be, for example, I think these were in the bakery section, is where you'd see these, whereas the other ones would be on the shelf primarily. And
Got it.
the reason they have this is because some retailers prefer this as a way, when you're again, our process doesn't involve getting it into stores other than just the work that we do to position them to do that.
Yep.
But the, you know, the store buyers are the ones that they are talking to get it in the store. And they have different preferences, right? Depending on the store. Some prefer like, hey, we'd love to put these in the deli. Can you give us a clamshell? So that's something they offer. I think it's very unlikely that a store would have both. I don't think that's ever the case, but that's the reason that you see these in a clamshell.
Yeah, now that this is my second run through with a packaging expert, and I think I'm starting to really understand how you guys think. So a few things I notice: the brand, look, it's there, it's the first thing you see, but on balance between a visual of the actual product and a description of what it is you're about to get, it's much smaller. There's plenty of room so you can see the visual of the project to help get people salivating a little bit, but at the same time, it's like, well, maybe they don't know what this is. And that's why the biggest thing you see is granola cookie bakes. That sounds exciting, but what kind? And that's where you get into, of course, oatmeal or pomegranate or whatever it is. And then that little additional selling you put underneath just to make sure, just to nudge them over the edge if they're not quite there yet. And oh, by the way, these things are pretty good for you, or certainly not bad for you. Does that sound about right?
That's great, John. I couldn't have said it better myself.
There you go. I'm coming along. You guys are teaching me a thing or two.
Excellent. So let's see what else I have here. Their displays before and after. I love this transformation because before they had all that blue and it's just not impactful. It's not really selling what very well. It doesn't stand out. We decided to embrace red as the primary brand color for the displays, which it just super stands out. It's an appetizing color. And then the products within that just coordinate really well. So, we could have done something that was more of a, kind of a color that just blends in with the brand. But the red is kind of like just really stand out and provides a nice complementary contrast to the packaging that goes within it.
Looks fantastic.
Yeah. And then sell sheets, these are, typically what they show to store buyers. So just before and after, just including this because I love doing sell sheets once we've done the brand, because these are so important these are typically with store buyers to sell them. A lot of people think, oh, this is not a B2C item. It's not consumer facing. But the store buyer is just as much your consumer as your end consumer because they're basically the gateway between getting your product to the end consumer in a store. Because if it doesn't pass the buyer, then they're not going to have it in your store. So this to me I see is a really important document. And they were doing okay before, but again, it's just so much more impactful and just visually, I think, interesting on the after.
Yeah, again, another recurring theme. I think every single food and beverage marketing expert, regardless of what aspect of it they were talking about, at some point the sell sheet came up. And I'm really learning how critical that is. And you can see those little details you made on the after really help make the whole thing look more cohesive, put together. And I'm also kind of gleaning that again, across multiple episodes, that's part of look, getting into retail is huge, right? A lot of, for many brands, like that's the goal and scaling that retail presence. So how do you impress the buyers? Well, part of it would seem, if I were to distill it down to its least common denominator, is like really look dialed in, have your brand dialed in, a certain degree of professionalism, but also clarity on who you are, what you're about, and what you're trying to lead out with helps not only sell the customers, but the buyers as well. And I think your sell sheet clearly does that.
Exactly. And it just shows that it's a strong brand in the end. You said it great, John.
Yeah.
I also just want to point out a small detail. If they have these, before they were using these icons here, let me see if I can zoom in on them a little bit. to call out their sorry.
No squirrels.
No squirrels, right. So I see this a lot is brands will be using icons and for their call outs, which can sometimes it works really well, but it's got to mean something to the customer at a visual level, right?
It's a
So
double-edged sword.
right. So no squirrels. Well, I hope there's
Right.
no squirrels in this food.
Squirrels did
No.
not eat this product before it made it to you.
Right. What is this? No water? I don't know.
Yeah, right.
No, I kind of get this, the beaker with the chemicals, but they really weren't adding anything. So we ended up just going with text, kind of varying it with the emphasis point on each call out and just tying it all together in the band there. So ultimately that works much better than these icons that don't really mean anything.
For sure. Trans fat. I wouldn't have known which
Yeah.
one of those was that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So and then here again, just back of the box here, kind of similar to the back of the pouch. We just cleaned it up. And the way they were doing these call outs here, these little grain piles, as we saw before, those ended up being on the side in a done in a more interesting way. So and then I think this is the last thing is the website. So this was their before website, and we literally just reskinned it with the new look. So pretty much everything that worked was the same, structure was the same, but we just kind of cleaned up the parts that needed cleaning up. And this would be the desktop version, and then the mobile version on the right.
Looks fantastic.
And I will say this is one of my favorite types of projects where we're working with an existing brand where they've got a great start. They've gotten really far over the years. They're ready to position themselves for kind of the next chapter. And we really just go through the brand in every level, right? So all their products, their, as we saw, their marketing stuff, their and their website. I just love when love when it comes all together. And then just to recap, so the ROI, because this had been done a few years ago, was a huge success. They expanded their distribution. They got new retailers. They secured into Costco and really just positioned them for the future growth for the next couple decades. Probably would be my guess.
I don't think I've ever craved biscotti as much as I'm craving it right now. So you're doing something right. That's for sure, Jenn.
I will say also the products are great. Not to plug the client, but I should, right? Because the products are great. One of the things I love about the clients that we work with is they're making amazing food. It tastes great. It's really is different in a way from the competitors, and they're just doing a really cool thing. And to be able to help them amplify that is really just something I'm very passionate about.
Fantastic. Well, job well done.
Okay. So this next one, La Tourangelle, is they make artisan oils. We actually started working with them. They're a French company, so they were already around in Europe for a while. But they, circa early 2000, they came to the U.S., wanted to start here, and that's where I started working with them to design their U.S. Branding and packaging. And so this is going to be about the evolution that we did about 16 years after that, because we've been partnering with them ever since we started working with them. So,
oh, wow.
So this is the before. This was the original design that we did. They started with 4 products. But then they quickly grew. So this is just a few of them. And these are just screenshots of the fronts. Kind of a sort of traditional yet modern look, kind of a nod to their heritage. And everything we did here was with significance and strategy and reason. But I'm going to focus on the evolution, because this, like the first one was an evolution, the first case study. This is an even more subtle evolution.
Yep.
And I love it because it's the small, even really small changes can make a huge difference. So
this looks very familiar to me too. I think I've seen this before on the shelves. What is the product in the box?
It's artisan oil. So these are actually screenshots of the label that wraps around. Sorry, I didn't have final product images of the before to include here. But it's a tin can. So the label wrapper on the tin can, it's artisan oils, like just roasted, artisan like walnut oils, hazelnut oils, a lot of nut oils, but they also have a lot of other specialty oils as well.
Right.
Yeah. So this is the before. This is what we originally designed, in the early 2000s. And then this is around 2019, 2020 that we did this change. So here's the before on the left. And here you can see the tin can. So that before image is not great. So here's a tin can. You can see the image is kind of small, a lot of text, starting to look dated, right? So they knew it was time for a change, to position them again, just like Cooper Street Cookies, for the future growth that they wanted to have for their brand. So this on the right was our initial concept. This isn't the final, but this is where we started, where we're, just changing the fonts. They went from artisan oils on the tagline to artisan made, because at this point they were much more than just oils. They have dressings and, stuff that they're using their oils to make. So they wanted to change to artisan made. We simplified down here to just, succinct uses, and then the heat, because with oil, a big, point of differentiation within oils is how they're used, right? So some are for like a finishing oil, like drizzling, not a high heat oil. Others are, are high heat, or they're low heat, or this one's medium high. So we just really streamlined all the info and made the illustration considerably larger.
Yeah, a little bit sharper, a little bit larger. And this idea of helping the customer understand the use cases is, again, something that has come up, because I think it's a really important point. As soon as there's any potential confusion, or you worry that customer might just be reluctant to make the purchase because they're not totally sure how or why they would use it, hold their hand, tell them how. You're going to saute, you're going to dip, you're going to drizzle. Any of those will work. So it makes sense why you would do that there. But it looks like this was only the initial concept, so it progressed from here.
Yeah. So we looked at, I'll try to zoom in on here, but we looked at just a bunch of different subtle changes on. I mean, you can hardly even tell the difference on some of these, but they just give a different feel, right? So on the fonts primarily, and let me see if I can, go back to the next page here. So again, just to kind of keep things moving along, I'm just going to kind of skip through these, but you can see just playing around with different nuances here. And again, they just look almost the same, but we're just exploring on a really micro level of just some different type treatments here. And again, with the logo, same thing. So we went from this kind of dated looking font to just checking out some different ones, and how does that, each one imparts a different feel, see what resonates most with the client, and just take it from there. So ultimately, we felt that this was too much of a change. So we kind of went, and this was that initial concept that we looked at. So we kind of combined the two and ended up with this hybrid one over here. And then I think the next page has the before and after. There we go. So if you kind of like, squint and look afar, they almost look the same, right? And that was the goal with this, because they didn't want a big departure. They wanted to be able to seamlessly roll this out kind of as they needed to reorder, reorder packaging, reorder labels. They didn't want to have to kind of do everything all at once. And, so that was the goal, is to kind of have a seamless rollout of this one.
Looks like a mission accomplished to me. Very clean, but you accomplished that modernization and, like the utility of the packaging design.
Yeah. And then let me just kind of show you a little bit more. So this is the back. So previous back, a little busy, kind of crowded, a lot of information. On the right, just really cleaned up. We just drilled down to, well, what information needs to stay, what needs to go. And the information that stays, how can we make it more, easier to process, right? So we came up with this little chart here, and some, call outs here, all the technical stuff. And there you go.
Yeah, it's funny how some elements of good, clean, like modern web design and conversion rate optimization start to have started to trickle into packaging. And maybe, frankly, I have it backwards. Maybe it's, elements that were good for packaging have found their way into web. But just this idea of explanatory icons,
Mhm.
certain use of bordering or ordering of elements. I mean, good conversion design is good conversion design, regardless of the medium. And you can see some of that incorporated here.
Exactly. And I would say, John, it's probably more about just design in general and how we've evolved and communicating visually and information structure. But if you think about it, we're more and more distracted. We have shorter and shorter attention spans.
Mm,
We don't want to be made to work at something.
right.
So we've got to make it easy. A lot of times we're not even reading it. It's just kind of scan and, oh yeah, this looks good. This resonates with me. Let's go.
Yeah, that's right. We're also just busier.
We're busy. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So just continuing on, here's some of the final. They've
Oh,
got,
wow.
I don't know how many products, too many for me to count, but so these are just a few.
It's funny how there's something to be said about seeing them all next to each other as like a completed set. One
Mhm.
almost somehow enhances the look of the other. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a really kind of sexy look when you see them all lined up. They look great.
I get so excited about it, John, because to see them, like, just look at the way the colors work together.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
and then you see them on the shelf like that, or you see them on their website like that. To me, in isolation, it works great, but as a family, I mean, it's just, to me, it's a showstopper.
So I'm not crazy, right? There's something to be said about putting them all together, right? Yeah, it looks great.
Definitely, definitely. Here's a few more, and oh, and then we added this on the bigger cans. We added this side flag, which was just more about the environmental aspect of why they use a tin can, because there are reasons for it, and just kind of explaining that to the consumer. It's not really a selling point, but it's something that a lot of people are curious about, like what's with the tin can. So we explain that there.
And I mean, at risk of stating the obvious, consumers are really curious about all things environmental sustainability. So it makes perfect sense that you would not only address it, but kind of call it out.
They've been doing amazing things with sustainability, I think all throughout their longevity, but even just in recent years. If you're not familiar with this brand, I highly recommend you check them out. Their oils are amazing. Walnut oil is my most favorite, but they've got really great, great other ones as well. But they're doing some really cool stuff with sustainability for sure.
Can't wait to try it out.
Yeah. So just to recap, the ROI on this one is the seamless rollout was a success. You'd see the new ones and the old ones on the shelf next to each other and almost didn't know the difference. Yet if you look closely, the new ones, they just felt fresher and more vibrant. And again, it was just the right time for them to make this change to kind of position themselves for, the next 20 or so years.
Looks
They
fantastic.
had Yeah, they landed shelf space at new retailers. They've been rolling out new products since then, and just again that position for future growth.
Looks
I
good.
love.
You have one more for us?
I do. All
All right, fantastic.
right.
The
So
coup de
Vevan,
grace.
this one is.
Wait, is it coup de grace or coup d'etat?
Oh, I thought it was coup de grace.
Yeah. It was actually a rhetorical question. I looked into this, right? A coup d'etat is a takeover of the state, and a coup de
Oh,
grace is like the final death nail. So while I doubt this has anything to do with the death nail. I think this is the big crescendo. So let's get into it. And how is this pronounced? You've got nothing but difficult to pronounce products and brands today.
this
How
is
was that last one pronounced?
La Tourangelle.
La Tourigel. Okay. And this is Vevan?
Vevan.
Vevan. Okay.
Yeah. And I would call this the icing on the cake or the cherry on top, to use a food related pun.
Hmm?
um,
I see
so
what you did there.
Thank you. Oh yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so this one's a little bit different from the other two case studies in that this was a new brand, so hadn't been out before, a new product. Vevan, they're making plant-based cheese,
Mm.
cheese alternative, I guess you technically have to call it. So this was, starting out the vegan cheese category at that point was already, there were a lot of major players in it. Vevan is made by actual artisan cheesemakers. So the same creators of dairy cheese, they're the ones who designed Vevan. And they designed it to be totally different from every other vegan cheese out there in terms of like melt, stretch, flavor. A lot of vegan cheeses, I think maybe not so much anymore, but maybe still. It's been a while since I've had the competitors. But they would leave this kind of funny aftertaste or just have this funny taste to it. Vevan, you almost don't know the difference. Like it's so much like the real thing.
Wow.
It could pass. It could pass. So Vevan's a bit of a renegade brand. So let me walk you
Sure.
through the thing. So we're looking at the competitors to start. And we do this with any brand. But what I'm showing you for the process of these case studies is a little bit different for each one, just taking snippets of each one. So we do look at competitors, at the start of any project. But so I'm showing you for this one. There's a lot of white, light, clean, minimalist kind of look here. Nothing too exciting, in my opinion. But, that's kind of was the look for the category.
Mm.
So the inspiration for Vevan was the opposite of that. Pretty much, this cheese is totally unlike all the other cheeses. It's so much more like real dairy cheese that you don't have to settle. This is like authentically really good plant-based cheese.
Yeah, it's almost like the competitors with their collective mood board, if you will, were almost saying like, don't worry, this is safe. You won't hate it. It'll be perfectly fine, right? That's kind of what like the takeaway. Like it's fine, it's good, it's clean, it's good to go. Nothing to worry about. Whereas immediately, what I think I'm getting from this is, oh no, you're gonna really like this. You're going to enjoy this. We're going to bring some flavor, some energy, some excitement to what you might otherwise think of as a letdown from the real thing. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. Oh, exactly. And I think a lot of times people who are newcomers to a category assume that, oh, well, this is what it looks like. We want it to fit in. We want it to look like this other successful brand or these other successful brands. That couldn't be the more incorrect approach because you blend in at that point. You don't stand out. And if you really want to make a difference, if you really want to just disrupt a category, you've got to stand out. You've got to take a bold stand and be different.
Awesome.
So these were kind of the inspiration images for this brand. Here's some more, just like raw creativity, bold color, more of the lifestyle aspect of it.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're, if you're eating plant-based cheese for whatever reason, maybe it's preference, maybe it's dietary needs, I think you're used to just settling for an alternative, right? Well, it's kind of like cheese, but it's not cheese. Like we all know it's not cheese. But again, this is a totally different experience. So we wanted to focus on the lifestyle aspect of just you don't have to settle for this.
Yeah, once you throw a hippie van in there, you know it's about lifestyle, you know?
Love the hippie van. Love it. So let's move on here. So the naming, this one, we participated in the naming. We came up with the name. I can't tell you how many names we considered for a very long time. Ultimately, we came up with the name Vevan. It was a hit. The way I came up with that name was I was just taking kind of words that were related to the brand and swapping out a letter and seeing what happens. So that's how we ended up at Vevan. We played around with having that line over the R because, in the beginning, as you said, is it Vevan? It's Vevan, but ultimately we decided not to have it. So we're looking at just a bunch of kind of logo exploration here, just type treatments, what resonates, what doesn't. These aren't, I wouldn't call these logos, but these are just kind of the lettering exploration. Ultimately, this one circled here is what stood out the most collectively to our team and the client's team. And we decided to pursue that approach. Coming back to that raw creativity, right? Is just kind of, and with this new type of plant-based cheese that is so much like regular cheese, you can create the things that you loved to create with dairy cheese that you no longer can have, maybe because of restrictions or your dietary preferences. So we love this approach. It's kind of starting to come together here. That led to this as being the custom hand lettered logo. I threw it 100% awesome as just kind of I think it's 100% awesome. So I just put it in there because it was fun. Figuring that it probably wouldn't fly in the end with the client. they loved it. And that's the tagline.
Well,
Um,
correct me if I'm wrong, but it gets back to that natural hesitation around like these plant-based substitute products. Like, am I actually going to like it? Is this just going to be a letdown from the real thing? So that's probably what you're trying to really push and communicate here. Like, no, this is 100% awesome.
Yeah. And that, again, was the thinking behind it. It's kind of just inherent in the decisions that I make. So I don't always think to call out those things. But thank you, John. Yes, that was definitely the intention behind it is, hey, this is 100% awesome. Try it, see it, for yourself.
You're going to love it.
You're going to love it. But if you say you're going to love it, then it's like, am I? Like, let me figure it out. You know what I mean? So you've got to be really careful and strike that right balance of, being different, clearly communicating, but not making assumptions.
It's a little car salesman-y, right? To be like, you're gonna love it, I promise.
Right.
Just pick it up today. Yeah. Nothing against the car salesman out there. I've got a family of them, actually.
So moving on, this is the design that we ended up with for their shredded cheese line. As I like to say it, it's just unapologetically disrupting the category. It's,
Nice.
we've got these paint backgrounds in there. It's just full of texture. The idea, everything's pretty much handwritten or handwritten style. The idea with this is that, kind of like I said, create your own, right? Take this and create what you want with it. And, that's really just that raw creativity and bold flavor, bold color. This is, how we arrived at that.
Yeah, and you used the word rebel earlier. That's coming through in a subtle way. I love the idea of rebelling through, substitute cheese, but there's really something to that. Going against the dairy industry is a rebellious thing to do.
Yeah. And a lot of the other competitors in the category, for legal reasons, you can't call it cheese, right? But what can you call it? Cheese alternative, cheese style.
I love it. Ched shred. That's cool. That's fun. Pete back.
Yeah. It was great. So these were, in partnership with the client, these names were developed, and I just love how it ended up. So I'll walk you through a little bit more of this. We got the melts line. So again, they're the slices, but called melts, just to have a fun name to go with shred. They rolled out some snacks, so little nut cheese, plant-based cheese, fruit things. And they came up with uncreamed cheese, which is, I will say, also amazing. It's really great if you can get your hands on some of these. I highly recommend it. Now, on the cups, we, for parameter reasons, we couldn't do the paint background. So we ended up just doing a solid color, and works just as well. What I love is that you get some of that texture in here, like the texture we had on the packages with the paint background. You kind of have that same texture here with the way the uncreamed cheese is spread around. So it is a bit of connection, but you have to make these decisions as to what will work in print and what won't. So there's a lot of technical requirements that come into play as you kind of roll out among the different packages.
Looks awesome.
Yeah. So those inspiration images that we used for the brand development, we ended up putting those on the website just to communicate the lifestyle aspect and just fun, different, complementary. When I'm building out a brand, I always love to start with the packaging and branding as the face of the brand. And then everything else around that I see as an extension of it. So the website, you don't want it to be cookie cutter. You don't want it to look exactly like the packaging. If I'm checking out the brand, I want to go to the website. I want to be surprised. I want to see something different, So again, it's that element of just being different, the element of surprise and delight, and just building out a varied and interesting brand, but with a reason. So these are literally the images that we used as inspiration for the design. They also tie into that lifestyle aspect of, and the flavor and the creativity and just, living your best life.
That's all coming through in the design. It really is very engaging and sub-communicates all the right things. Kudos to you in pulling that off. That looks great.
Thanks. I got a few more. So just kind of showing some more of the variety in the banner images on the website. What I love is when you get to the product section, it's color coded to go with the color of the Ched is green. We got the PJack red. So it's kind of each one has its own flavor, so to speak, of the visual. So matzo blue.
It works too. I can't even explain why. You probably can, but there's something about the flavor of a mozzarella that brings that calm, cool element to it. There's something about a pepper jack, or in this case, a pea jack, that brings a little pizzazz and excitement to it. That explains the red. But, again, the art of sub communication, you're clearly a master, Jenn.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you so much. So, and then the last thing we did for this brand, I mean, we did all the sell sheets too, but I didn't include those here. But social media, which was really fun. Again, just kind of a different take here, using some of the, similar images from that inspiration, that lifestyle stuff, but mixing it with a lot of other stuff in here. And social media kind of has its own vibe going as well. It's like its own little branch of the brand. So this was a lot of fun. A lot of fun to build out. The ROI for Vevan is it quickly became a national brand. You can find it in a lot of stores nationwide. New products immediately followed. So this set a great stage, a great entry point for them to roll out additional products, additional flavors. It was a hit with store buyers, and they got it into Costco, which I think every food brand wants to get into Costco because it's just you get a huge audience from that.
Yeah, that's like the ultimate point of aspiration, getting into Costco. It's an amazing.
Yeah.
We call it adult Disneyland in my family. So
love it. Yeah. So that's everything.
That's great, Jenn.
Yeah.
Well, we really appreciate you taking the time to share those with us. I think our listeners, viewers will find that extremely helpful. And clearly you do beautiful work. So before we sign off here, if anyone wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that? And what's the best way to follow along with Jenn David Design?
Yeah. So, I mean, go to our website, jenndavid.com, 2 N's in Jenn. You can see more of our work there, learn more about us. We have a lot of, I've read out a lot of articles that published there, helpful information. So definitely check out our free resources. We do have social media accounts. I'm going to be honest, we're not that active. We try to be, but a lot of times we're just so busy helping clients and working on these great projects that, it kind of falls off to the wayside. Yeah. Same with the website. We got a new website coming out probably in the next few months. So
good luck.
Check it out. But and you can so just check the website. You can find different ways to contact us there if you'd like.
Awesome. Well, Jenn, thanks so much. That was a really fun and unique addition to the Niche Marketing Podcast. We really appreciate your investment of time, and thanks again. Can't wait to have you on again sometime.
Thank you so much, Sean. It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.